I want to say welcome to everyone who's participating in this year's Decibel Arts and Entertainment Festival. It's actually presented by Republic Bank. They've been our sponsor for 6 years. This is our 7th year. And
congratulations.
Thank you. We didn't get as much money this year. For some reason, I don't know why. I don't know if it's this virtual thing. They were like, no. But the fact is that they've been very supportive. One of the few corporate sponsors that have, and specifically in this time of COVID, that has helped us, stage the weekend and help us give back to other communities as well. And in fact, this is part of a larger program. I'll let you guys know. We're tied in with the University of the West Indies, and they are doing this as a joint effort with all of us to raise funds to basically support families in need who are trying to put their kids through school, basically. So it's, giving back to scholarships and funding of that nature. So it's all for a good cause. Everyone practically involved in this effort is pretty much doing this gratis. So we're grateful to all those people who are getting involved in this thing. And as part of this virtual weekend, we have a number of workshops and panel discussions. And this is one of our famous workshops that we have. And I have to thank Carrie so much for getting involved with us and putting this together. We're very grateful. You always have a place to stay in Trinidad.
And a boat.
And a boat. It doesn't make sense unless we include the boat. And of course, a welcome invitation to everyone else who's on. I'm going to, as festival director for this Arts and Entertainment Festival, I'm going to put it on to someone who's far more capable at moderating panels than I am. His name is Arturo Martinez. He's been a friend. He's actually family of mine, is the best way to put it. He's out there in Florida fighting a different kind of war with COVID, right? And lack of barbers. And
lack of barbers.
Yeah, there you go.
And I know the feeling, man. And I want to say, welcome to him and welcome to everyone else in the program. I'm going to pass it on to you, Arturo, so you could tell us a little bit about you. I think no one can give us a better description of who you are and what, what you do in the industry. And then from there, you and Carrie can navigate this with me butting in every now and then.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. A few familiar faces. Hello, all those new. My name is Arturo Martinez. I'm here in South Florida, originally from New York City. Been in the industry about 20 years. Right now, currently a booking agent for Cardenas Marketing Network. Represent all of our artists are basically in the Latin music front, but we represent Mark Anthony, Nicky Jam, two of the artists that I'm kind of specifically with is Bad Bunny and such. But we also have Manuel Turizo, Christian Nodal, Alejandro Fernandez Jr. So we represent about 13 artists. Primarily, I work in the booking division, but we're also promoters, the largest Latin promoters in the US. So we also handle the tours for those specific artists as well, worldwide. Also a host for a podcast called Road Warrior Status, shameless plug, available on all streaming platforms for anyone who wants to check it out. Not kidding, but yeah, so we host a podcast called Road Warrior Status, pretty much taking a glimpse into the entertainment field, everyone there. And we've had some great guests and we know where everyone's at, but we're trying to just focus on the road it took them to get there. I started in the early 90s in New York City in hip hop and then moved my way to Latin music and just glad to be here. Again, hello to everyone and looking forward to this. Thank you for the opportunity.
Let's start with Bozzi.
Great.
Bozzi is an amazing human being who I've gotten to know just fairly recently, however, worked together for a while. So where are you, Mike?
Yeah. I am right here. I guess I'll tell you who I am. Mike Bozzi. I've been a mastering engineer for 25 years at Bernie Grumman Mastering in Hollywood. Over that time, I've had, years of working mostly in Black music, rap, hip hop, R&B. My mentor was very well known within the industry for those genres of music. And upon his retirement, I took over his studio. So I've been running that for 5 years. And yeah, that's kind of the engineering part that I bring to the table. I work with the majority, my biggest clients really, Kendrick Lamar, Post Malone, Tyler the Creator, Childish Gambino, but then my mentor in the past had worked on that first generation of West Coast rappers with NWA and Eazy-E and Tupac and all that. So it's been my wheelhouse for 25 years. So anyway.
No. Well, I want to take time and thank you for your contribution to my youth, because you've played a big part in that. So
I was a huge fan.
Sure.
I mean, a huge fan during, when you're working on music that you go home and listen to. Like, there's really nothing better than that. So I'm blessed.
No, that's and the mastering game. That's kind of like an eclectic kind of little hole, that not a hole, but just such an important piece that,
it's the mystery element for a lot of people. It's the last process before you're releasing music. So there's I think people kind of discount the step between mixing and releasing music, and that's where I come in. So we're editing, we're working with EQ frequencies and dynamics and volumes and editing. So it's really the last opportunity to touch music before it gets approved by the artist and released to the world. So, that's the basic overview.
And Mike, when was the point where the bug actually bit you, that you knew that mastering is where we're going to excel and stick with? Were you a musician? Were you doing music before?
I mean, I had started. My father was in the music business at radio, so I'd been around the business forever. And then every job I took before becoming a mastering engineer was either in a retail store or working at a music theater. Worked for independent labels, interned at labels, so I was always kind of around it. I'm a 3-time junior college dropout, really. So
Wow.
I think very early on, when I realized that I could have a little bit of longevity even before I started actually mastering. I mean, when you don't have a plan B, that dictates itself to you. But I grew up in that studio. I started when I was 22, 23, and I'm years old now. So, I'm fortunate enough to have come up in an era where there were mentorships, which I think are a lot more now, or then, than they are now. And yeah, I just think somewhere along the line, when I realized I was paying my bills and supporting a young family at the time, hey, this actually is working out. But I never set out to be a mastering guy, but I'm thankful for it now. For sure.
Great. We have, I see Anson's on there somewhere, Martin Raymond. Hey guys, is there anything you want to bring into that same track? Actually, I'm sorry, Anson, before I cut you off, Mike, one quick question. Now, the advent of a lot of the independent guys working from their home studios and releasing things into this, the importance of mastering, because we see a lot of, at times, some people think, well, I can mix and master, and the difference of that. do you see, obviously we see that more in the advent of the home studios and stuff like that, but what would you tell the upcoming artists as far as, you know, I guess we know the importance of it, but.
Right. Well, I think the idea, again, I think I have a unique perspective because I kind of straddled generations technology-wise. So when I started, everything was still analog. The master types were still punched in on tape. We were running mostly off of analog tape and DATs and every other medium during the 90s. And then it just seems recently, maybe the past 5 or 10 years, you have mix/mastering guys. And that's not to say that mixers can't also master. I just think prior to that, to your original point that it's kind of this dark art thing that nobody really understands, that was kind of the niche that we were all filling. And that's all our studio does. Like, we don't venture off and also mix or produce or any of those other things. We strictly master. Again, I don't hate people for saying they mix and master. I just find that from my perspective, if you're a mixer, you're probably mixing to the best of your ability. And part of why you hire a mastering engineer is for their ears and a second opinion. So if you've mixed a song to the best of your abilities, what are you then doing to the thing to call it mastered versus hiring a mastering engineer to give his, 2 cents?
Yeah.
But again, like, technology makes things possible. At the end of the day, if people are putting out music, however they get it out there is a good thing, as far as I'm concerned.
Gotcha. Can we go to Martin Raymond, who's also a excellent engineer, and just get your feedback on this as well, Martin?
Yeah, hi. Even all, great to touch base. Thanks very much for having me. I'd very much like to echo Mike's points there, in that I think there are 2 different ways of looking at it. I suppose I sort of came up under the sort of British system where mastering was seen as the first stage of the manufacturing process. And what we're starting to see now is where mastering is now seen as the last stage of the creative process. And I've always sort of operated in between. I like to say I was actually a producer and a mix engineer for 20 years before I ventured into mastering. And I would love that other people follow the same path, but every day I meet kids who say, I'm a mastering engineer. I also run the music technology program at UTT, and I was joking with my class the other day of the new class of 20-something people. 18 out of those said the number 1 reason for doing the class is they wanted to learn how to master. At which point I give them I was an engineer for 20 years before I even ventured into that. And I'd like to highlight what you said there about mentorship. I was very fortunate, I think, starting off as a producer, to be mentored by 2 very great mastering engineers. One is Steve Angel at Utopia Studios in the UK, who actually started his career with Hendrix, as well as the late Gordon Vickery of Virgin Townhouse. And just by sitting at their feet as a producer, bringing my stuff to be mastered, I learned so much of the art of doing it and the fine tuning and what those little differences were. And on the local front, I really have to name check. There's a gentleman by the name of Lawrence Lidlow. We call him Ritz. He was the guy that almost single-handedly kick-started the computer-based mastering revolution in the Caribbean. He was really the first guy to do it all on a computer, operating out of Caribbean Sound Basin. And he was the first guy, I remember when I came back to Trinidad in the 90s, he was the first guy I ever saw operated a computer without even touching the mouse. He would just sit there typing and things would happen and things would appear and disappear and edit and plugins would open. And I'm like, how do you do that? And at some point he just, I think he wanted to take a break for a year or so. And he sat down and he taught me everything he knew about mastering in the box. And I sort of took it from there. And I was kind of fortunate over I would say from about 2004 to maybe 2014, 15 to most of the road marches and calypso monarch songs coming out of the Caribbean passed through my hands, for better or for worse. I'm very glad to be kind of part of shaping the final sound of soca over those few years. But when people ask me what mastering is, I always say it's about objectivity. It's not about what equipment I use, what knob I turn. Yeah, having a fresh pair of ears, but an experienced pair of ears, hear your material for the first time. It's really that final level of quality control before it reaches to the public. Unfortunately, I know our job seems to be about to be taken over by little robots, but maybe that's another discussion.
So, well, Martin, Mike, I have a question. So, with the amount of music that comes out in the islands, especially, and I guess this will be a question for the production guys as well, for the amount of music that comes out during the islands for carnival seasons and just throughout the years, with the huge amount of music that comes out, and you mentioned a lot of the kids now are interested, they wanted to go to mastering. Do they find, I guess what I'm trying to say is, has it always been a very, very important part of mastering, or do you find like there's a lot of people that just go ahead and put it out maybe on, let's say, a final mix or just mix and master it?
I think there's a far more awareness of it now. But I think what tends to happen is a lot of people do it themselves. I would say 80% of the releases out of the Caribbean you'll see produced by, recorded by, mixed by, mastered by the same person. And it's great if you can do that, but I tend to think sometimes teamwork makes the dream work. And sometimes the more ears you have on something, the better chance you stand of being competitive. Something I tell my students, like I put a lot of emphasis on learning how to mix properly, because what I hear a lot of poor mixes or mastered versions of poor mixes. In other words, it's just like a loud, a mix that might be badly balanced, vocals distorted, etc. And someone just ran it to isotope or put a limiter on it and say it's mastered. And I say, well, it's not. It's just like a loud version of a poor mix, It's much better. The less the mastering engineer has to do, the better your mix is, the further it can go. So I think bit by bit, we're seeing that on it. I think most of the major artists, I would say, do have that philosophy of they will go to different mixing engineers, different mastering houses. It's really more the up-and-coming artists and producers that are doing a lot of it themselves. And sometimes you hear some really great work, but not all of it.
Yeah. And Mike, I guess the same question would be for you, because as well as in the hip hop, you have it, we have the advent of a lot of the quote unquote mixtapes that come out that, there's tons of music coming out all the time. Yeah. How about you? Do you concur, or what's your outlook on that?
The importance of mastering?
Well, we know the importance of it, but I'm saying more or less of with the amount of artists that come out, do a lot of them tend to just mix master themselves, or do you see, because you've been doing it a long time, so I imagine you've seen it
I've seen the gamut, right? I've gotten mixes that somebody's given me that were mastered, that they want me to master the mastered version from. Much like Martin said, like, here's an extremely loud bad mix, make it sound great. Yeah. And to my earlier point, it's hard to blame a new generation of engineers who maybe haven't had the exposure to equipment or gear or mentorship. But the other part of that equation is it's great that they have access and the ability to create something. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I find a lot of the times, to Martin's point, a really good mix doesn't need a whole lot of love from the mastering guy. We actually become more of a person who's transferring the material from one format to the other. But then there are mixes that are, really need a lot of work. And at the end of the day, it's a good cop-out for a mastering guy, but if it's not in the mix, a mastering guy is not necessarily going to make that happen for you. So to his point, the way we work, always a collaborative effort. You're always getting something to sign off on and revise. I'm a big fan of attended sessions for that exact reason, because I feel like when you've got everybody in the room, yes, you get my opinion, but then we can bounce each other's ideas off one another and deliver something that everybody's satisfied with.
Yeah. So in looking at some of your past works, we came up with Childish Gambino's "This Is America."
Mm-hmm.
Congrats, incredible. Kendrick Lamar, right, and the latest Anderson .Paak. How does that feel to be part? You know, especially when what first got me was Childish Gambino's, because now more than ever that song kind of like hits home so much, and it was such an anthem, and
Right.
to have your stamp on that part of history, how does that feel? Something just
I mean, it's a weird place for me to be. I'm a hip hop fan, and a lot of the times, you know, you have to put your fandom and that part of your brain out of the equation. You need to be an analytical guy who's listening to music for the music's sake. There's a few songs that I've been lucky enough to work on. That's one of them, where you know that the message is bigger than the song, that is a universal message. And for me, the first time that happened was actually with Kendrick Lamar and the All Right song that kind of became the BLM anthem of that summer. And when you see your work kind of transcend music as it's normally digested, and it becomes bigger than just a release, like when I heard This Is America, I was impressed by the messaging, but when you paired that with the video that accompanied the music, it changed the entire thing. It became much more than a song or a video. And I don't think that you necessarily had to be a Childish Gambino fan to enjoy or process that piece of art. So, I mean, I'm honored. Part of why I mentioned earlier all of the artists I've worked on, like, I'm a white guy who works predominantly in Black music. So I owe a large part of my success to really a genre and a community of people that don't look like me, that invited me and welcomed me into that fold, regardless of what I look like. So to me, it feels like I'm taking part in something that's a unifying thing, even if it's behind the scenes between me and other engineers, but that maybe that once it gets out into everybody else's ears, like I think if you look around what's happening currently, we're all kind of unified behind certain ideas. So to be affiliated with projects like that, I mean, I'm lucky. I don't know what else to say. I'm honored that those things land in my lap. And it's amazing to watch them become bigger things, for sure.
Oh, great. You know, one of the things that brought me great interest in this project when Simon brought it up was how we can bridge artists, engineers, everyone from the islands, and to people from the States who have done great things. And one of the things maybe we should do is also see if we can ask each other questions. Martin ask Mike, and Mike ask, you know, guys, kind of speak your language and let us kind of be the flies on the wall while you guys, you know, speak what you do. But I'm sure there's so much in common that you do, because it's, like you said, it's all music when it comes down, and everyone putting out great music is the same. And one of the sayings I always like to say is, we all eat rice and beans, we just season them differently. So,
Hey.
You know, Mike or Martin, would you guys have any questions for each other, you know, at this point?
I actually, for Martin, because I think Martin probably had some time in the analog days. Do you prefer, because I tend to not use plugins. Our studio is kind of infamous for our console building. Everything's built in-house. So I kind of stay out of the box. Other than I think the ability to have a non-destructive system, and it seems to be a little quicker. Are you completely in the box? Are you still kind of doing a hybrid?
Well,
Do you prefer one over the other?
Yeah, well, it's very much a sort of a hybrid. As I said, I think I was fortunate to come up in the analog days. And the thing is, once you've heard like an analog high-end EQ, like a Massenburg or Soundtech, you don't really want to touch a plug-in EQ.
Right.
So you find in mastering, even sometimes when I'm in the box, like for instance, I barely use plug-in EQs at all. I will use plug-in compressors. But when it comes to EQs, having that analog knowledge, I think, enables you to approach it differently. So to me, that's also one of the disconnects a lot of the kids coming up nowadays. They've only ever experienced the digital. So unless you really have that to kind of fall back on, that sound in your head. And I think I was fortunate in the days, like when I was in London, I was working in a small studio with an analog machine, but really sort of low-end type of stuff. And I first heard like what a GML EQ could do to my top end. It really made me understand those things. But I think the most important thing is really about your room and your speakers, not so much the equipment. It really enables you to make those sort of critical judgments. And I was very fortunate to meet Bob Katz at the AES a couple of years ago. So I'm actually going to ask you the very first question he asked me. He asked me, what speakers are you using? And when I told him, he smiled and says, now we can have a conversation. So I'll ask you, what speakers are you using? To get all technical guys.
Right. I agree with your sentiment about rooms and treatments. If you don't know your room, you don't know what you have. Anybody that asks my opinion on mastering, like what would you go and buy if you're to do your first investment, and it's always sound treatment, good speaker system. I master on tannoys. That's all I've ever listened to. The studio was, I work with Bernie Drummond. Bernie was sponsored by Tannoy way long ago, so I think he's got the every studio, and it's the only setup I've ever listened on. So I'm familiar with them. I think they've got great detail and a really good representation of the spectrum. But when I get home, I listen on headphones just like anybody else and try and turn off the engineer brain and get back into the consumer brain. But geez, that's hard.
Cool. Well, I wanted to use I used to use tannoys all the time in London. In the studio I worked in, that's what I mixed on those for years. Fortunate to have a pair of B&W Bose & Wilkinson's Matrix 801s, heavily modified by a very interesting guy from San Fernando in Trinidad. To mention that to Chromatics, we have some kind of unsung heroes and geniuses here. There's this little guy in San Fernando who does all sorts of tweaks. In fact, he refused to talk to me for a year because he hated engineers. When he heard that I had acquired the spare speakers, he says, no, I'm not going to talk to any engineers. It took him a year to actually come and see me. And he kind of came and sorted out my room, changed cables, changed power supplies, changed capacitors. And I think one of the things for, at least initially for the local market, a lot of where our music gets experienced, a lot of our music or the Calypso and soca music gets experience on the road at Carnival Day, coming off of the back of a truck. And guys do crazy stuff here, like they put like 100,000 watt speaker systems and line arrays on a truck and drive them down the road in the middle of hot sun to 10,000 drunk people, or so it's like integrated people or happy people. And that changes how you approach the work. And I suppose my setup is really designed as one of the rooms where you can at least get some idea of what is this going to sound like coming off the back of a truck kind of thing. Interesting, I saw someone asked about streaming. So that's one of the big debates locally here at the moment. There has been a trend to master outside of Trinidad and Tobago by guys such as yourself. Some of that is to maybe adapt our music to the international market. But now one has to ask themselves, particularly in the light of COVID, where is music going to be experienced the most? And streaming has definitely changed the game.
Yeah. Hey, Martin, I'm sorry to cut you off. We're going to get onto the streaming thing. We just wanted, just because of the time constraints, we just wanted, if we could just move it along. And I just want to pass it along to Carrie. That's okay. I'm sorry, but Martin and Mike, thank you so much.
Oh,
Greatly
thank you.
appreciate it for the insight and everything.
Oh, it's a privilege. Thank you.
Carrie, just want to pass it along to you if you wanted to introduce our next panelist.
Hi everybody.
Yeah.
I think my computer's asking me some questions here. Hi, I am Carrie. I am a business manager, and philanthropist. I have worked with Anderson .Paak for almost 10 years. I have worked with Dr. Dre. I have worked with a number of people in the industry. However, I found that my passion is helping artists find their balance between their careers and their lifelong legacy. So how can I contribute to helping them find their path to make sure that they live longer than the ordinary artist's lifespan? So what is it that they have outside of creating music, from their branding to their nonprofit initiatives to the impact that they can make by utilizing the power that they have today? So today you can have multi-platinum sales and records and millions of dollars. However, that may be your 2-year lifespan within the industry. And so ultimately I like to work with them on developing what are they going to have outside of that, and then what will their legacy be when they are far gone, right? So I've found that defining that balance and helping them balance out their lives in that manner creates an environment where they can be more productive and create a greater impact on society as a whole. And this thought process in the business world and the music world hasn't really existed in terms of like working together to create this greater impact versus everyone wanting to have their own thing. Like, I want to have my own initiative. I'm not going to work with yours because I have my own, but you can help me. But then we create what I found is like little bursts of impact. Whereas today we're creating a great impact by coming together all over the world for Black Lives Matter and as it's relevant today, right? And so Mike is still on here, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I wanted to address something that came up in an initiative that we're working on today that affects Black Lives Matter and really reform. So Mike had posted on social media, I just read it, he had posted how the current state of society has made him feel. And I don't know, Mike, if you want to say anything about that, but he basically said in a video, hey, I've made my life as a white man, making a career and a legacy for myself and a name through predominantly Black music, from, John Legend, Nicki Minaj, Doja Cat, Kendrick Lamar, Dr. Dre, etc. And how can I help? And so he said, I can donate my services. I can help any artist that wants to or has a voice to share about what is going on in society and how can I, help get their voices heard, right? There are a lot of artists that are unknown that have voices that you can hear and feel their pain. You can hear and feel their need of their soul and spirit for change, that don't have any help to get it out there, right? And so something that I had been in need of during this time was to have artists speak on the state of society and take action. And this was, you know, probably a month and a half ago, before some of the songs that have come out, like Anderson's song, was released. And so I talked to a few friends of mine, all of which, everyone has their own Grammys, right? So it's easy to reach out to a known artist and say, hey, let's make a song about change and how we can make a change. But it's very different when you find unknown artists that just are passionate about music and are really in the streets of what's going on, to feel their pain, to feel their anguish, and to feel their desire and need for their families to spark change. So we came together and everyone said, hey, you know what, I want to help with this. And we put up a compilation. We're putting out a compilation in which artists all over the world have submitted music. So I think we have about 175 submissions, and it's closed. However, just being involved with this weekend's festivities and education and artists that may be participating and listening, I would love to get some submissions from you guys. If you guys have any music that's been created that you basically have a voice, you have something that needs to be shared, or something that you're feeling that has to do with the times that we're faced with. And within this compilation, we're going to take people who are probably not affected by everything that's going on, right? So maybe some people in Australia who are, you know, don't know anything other than what they see on the news about what's happening in America, and take them through the emotional process that we're faced with, the anger, the rage, the anguish, the frustration, the pain, and then a part of that healing and that unity of where we're coming to today. And our hope is that we, as known names within the industry, can uplift and amplify all of these voices for change and coming together for something greater than ourselves. And that is one example of how I feel like people with influence can create and spark this change within communities all over the world, not just here, but you have to do it while you have that influence, right? So if you are popular, you won your Grammy this year, but that's just this year. Next year you won't have a Grammy, next year you might not have a Grammy, and you cannot spark that same change and power and influence then.
Yes, no, great project, great opening. So we have ants in there, and we have chromatics as well. So you hear that, guys, could submit for consideration. Just if I can bring in Anson, established producer as well from Trinidad and Tobago. You want to introduce yourself to the group, Anson?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here. Thanks to the Decibel team. Thanks, Anturo. So I'm basically self-taught music producer, self-taught manager of a few successful artists in the Caribbean. Been doing music for over 20 years. I am young, yes. So I've been doing it since high school, almost primary school, you can say. So I remember when I was just going into Form 1, I had like a #1 song in East Asia, you know, where is that? As the days of MySpace, you know? So it just goes to show that you never know, you know? I didn't even know it was that big, but now I have matured and grown a lot within the music space and within the Caribbean scene. I guess I'm kind of like one of those producers that are very much in touch with what's going on internationally. I manage a very young, successful artist named Nyla Blackman. She's making a lot of waves down here. So for me, I'm here more to learn. I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot I can offer from a producer perspective, you know, just to touch quickly on the point about the mixing and mastering, Arturo, what you were talking about. I think that within the local Caribbean scene, we don't just mix, master, produce. We also write. We do. It's like a jack of all trades, and it's not that we do this because we're trying to cut costs. It's we do this because that's just how it is out here in the islands. You know, it's very difficult sometimes for young producers to find the resources to pay for a mastering engineer, to pay for a mix engineer, to pay for writers, to pay a recording engineer. So we just teach ourselves how to do everything. So that's gonna be a story you're gonna hear from the average producer out here. They mix, master, produce, write, sing, some of them, you know. But I do believe, you know, in what Martin was saying, and that, you know, like if we all work together, we can make, you know, that you can put yourself on a higher platform. You know, you're competing against the world, and that's one of the reasons why some of our productions may not be as on the same level as the Childish Gambinos and Nicki Minaj's. So something like Decibel here, you know, where we get to meet people like Mike and just be able to share and learn about each other. I hope that coming out of this, there's a lot of opportunities to be able to work with you all, and that you could understand that some of the plights that the Caribbean producers and artists have, you know, and just getting your music to that level of quality, you know. And just to also touch on that initiative, right, where we can submit music for your program. What is it called?
Revolution.
Revolution. Okay. So
The compilation is Revolution.
you mentioned it was closed, or you'll be willing to reopen?
No, I would definitely be more than happy to get some submissions from you guys.
Okay, because I think that's a really good initiative. I know Chromatics probably has a lot of stuff. I see Natasha's here. She manages another successful Caribbean artist, Lero. So I'm pretty sure that like we'll be glad to submit.
Yes.
I myself manage an artist who did something that went semi-viral, not as much as, you know, that young gentleman who started the Breeze song. Yeah. But hers went viral within the Caribbean space. So I believe that she has that. She's like a humanitarian at heart. So I will be reaching out to you. I guess Simon could share the emails.
Yes, please.
Yes.
That makes me happy.
No. Well, Carrie, you know, first of all, kudos on the project, and also I think what you're doing, the initiative, is fantastic. Also, if we could also introduce Duquan, because a lot of things you guys have been working on, you know, from behind the scenes that we've been watching, that hopefully we'll be able to speak on, are such great things. And when I speak to a lot of young artists as well, is to have that other aspect they have to think of, not just behind the mic. Okay, so if you're behind the mic, if you're singing, but what else can you bring to the table? You know, one of the dreams I've always had, which is something that Decibel brings with Simon, is also creating this thing for the youth from young. They can learn these things. I know Duquan with the WeWork University, which hopefully we'll be able to touch on that as well. Those, you know, it's like you know, not even to go off on a tangent, but the other day I worked on a home project at the house, and I'm like, damn, this is the first thing from junior high school that I remember, like a shop class. But I wish there was a music class that I picked up, a music business class, whether it was a graphic arts class, whether it was a law class, whether it was so much carpentry for stagehands, and so many things. So I think what you guys doing there, kudos, congratulations. Also think of everything marketing side is great. So I'm gonna let you guys speak on that. Also, I hope to bring in Natasha and Chromatics as well, artist manager, just to get that whole dialogue going there. So
well, thank you. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Carrie for giving us this opportunity to have a meaningful conversation like this, especially in these times. And also praise to the Most High for me I'll give a little background about myself. I'm 46. I was in the music industry for 24 years. I managed up-and-coming artists, established artists. I managed Busta Rhymes for 8.5 years, Tyrese Gibson for 6 years. And through that journey, I've learned the do's and don'ts in the music industry, as you can imagine. From that, I retired and I decided to dive headfirst into the tech space because I realized that there was value in our audience. So I formed a company called Future Media with my partner, Chase Wimberly, and we deal with the data and analytics that the audience give us so that we able to analyze the data and do marketing for different artists, different companies, Fortune 500 companies, Amazon, Home Depot, various different artists, labels, brands, so on and so forth. And just experiencing the music industry on a whole, I realized something, that the audience in particular was suffering, as I was, from lack of conversation, lack of support, and lack of therapy, to be honest, which we get a bad name for seeking out those kind of things. So I decided to form my foundation, which is called the Cynthia Foundation, which is near and dear to my heart. And what we do is we support young men and women who have lost their mothers or father at a young age. So we aim to redirect and strengthen the livelihoods for those who have been paralyzed by the death of their parents. And what was happening in the world, we decided to open that up with the Power of Now initiative so that we can provide emergency counsel, emergency therapy via the phone 24 hours a day so that we can really deal with the needs of our community who struggle or who have been touched by police brutality, everything that's happening in the world. So with that said, you know, I have much gratitude to have this opportunity to participate here and, you know, just let my voice be heard on what's important to me and to contribute to what's happening. So
I think that it's pretty amazing that, and it's really meaningful for a man, a Black man whose family is from the Caribbean, to stand up and say, hey, we need therapy. It's not a white person thing. It's not a rich person thing. It's not a you're weak thing. You got to handle your thing by yourself. You just deal with it. It's life. And say, no, it's okay. This is a safe space. This is for you. And this is for me. And I'm letting you know this was my life. And it doesn't make me any less of a man. And in fact, it makes me a stronger man to be able to share that story and provide these services and acknowledge that we as a community need help in accepting that is reality.
So true. I feel that wholeheartedly. You mentioned another platform, as I'm a serial entrepreneur. By the way, shameless plug, make sure you follow We Working and the Cynthia Foundation. And I am Duquan Brown on Instagram. But with those platforms, man, we provide just what you said, the assistance, the know-how. It's important to have an online education, things that come directly from us, the people that experience it, the people that's in it. You could download different modules that give you the information. You can watch The Music Business with my partner, Steve Lobel, who's been in this game just as long as I was, and really get the true information from the artist that's doing it today, kind of like a master class of our industry. So, yeah, so any questions or anything you may have, log on to We Working. We got the information for you.
Also, something I just want to commend you for personally is that during these COVID times, you guys partnered with other artists and donated classes. They gave away classes to people that have been quarantined due to COVID, and they were free classes, online classes for music management, the business of music, and to me, that is an example of things that we can provide for people in need, which isn't just giving away money, right? We're actually giving away, I say we, you are but when I say we, I mean us as a community, right?
Yeah,
and
the
us as a
community,
village. So that this is an example of leading them to water, and you're giving them an opportunity to come out of the situation stronger. You're able to give them the knowledge to come out of this with maybe a whole new career, right? Because now they're educated. If they take these courses that you guys have donated, that people pay hundreds of dollars for, to say, hey, I know how to manage, or I have an upper hand on how to, or I could start with a young independent artist, or I know how to do publishing, I know how to register your works, because they're taking these classes that have been provided for them while they're stuck at home. Instead of being stuck at home and watching TV and being on social media, you're actually educating them through and about the music industry through legends. Steve Lobel's with Nipsey Hussle. Like, who doesn't know who that is, right? And so again, I think that's an amazing thing, an example that we can do too in mentoring people and providing, donating services and classes to those that are stuck at home.
I think that's part of the greater good. I think that we all, especially in this conversation, are doing just that. I think it's our responsibility to try to contribute any which way that we can to grow our community and the humanity. Just continue to provide the things that we need and continue to water our youth, because that is the most important thing. That is the next generation. So thank you. Any questions, I'll answer if anybody have anything for me. Would like to know.
A pleasure meeting you, man. I mean,
thank you.
Read about you, know about your history. Actually, just to let you know, Tyrese, you used to manage Tyrese?
Yes, sir. 6 years.
So just a quick story, let you know how close we are in terms of how this universe is and connects us, right? I used to work for John Dukakis and Quadri Alameen, right? When they had a event back in the 90s. And one day this kid hollers at me on the street. This is in Hollywood, and says to me, hey, could you hook me up, get me, help me out, something, get me a meeting. I'm the kid on the Coca-Cola ad or something like that, or right? And
yes.
And I was like, yeah, I'm just an assistant, man. Right? I can hardly even get a meeting with these guys. So the reason why I brought that up is really to segue to two Caribbean professionals that are in this group. One is an artist by the name of Chromatics, and the other one is a manager that I've known for a while, Natasha Andrews. And Natasha is a manager. She handles an artist called Lyrical. And here's what I wanted to ask you about. You now don't feel like I'm embarrassing you by saying this, right?
No, please. But
basically, what I've found is that there are a lot of brothers and sisters who have Caribbean roots, right? That are like, I mean, just have these mad connections in the industry, in the US. And they always talk a really good game, like, man, we're from the Caribbean, we'll come down for carnival, we'll chill out, whatever. And we're like, yeah, come down. And by the way, we have an artist, right? And we would really like to get your help to push this thing forward, or to find a way. If we could produce a Bob Marley and a Rihanna, the sky's the limit. But then Chromatics and, Natasha will tell you, it's not exactly like that, man. Like, we will reach out to, not you might be completely different. But,
oh, I am.
Okay, great.
Go ahead.
But you know what I mean? And so we want to, in this very surreal time, we want to change that. And I really want you to hear from Maddox and from Natasha, maybe they fight. I mean, we don't have a lot of time left, but maybe you guys, you know, Maddox, Natasha, you just want to jump in and give your point of view?
I can jump. I don't know if Maddox is there. Hi, everyone. Thank you for including me, Simon, team, everybody. This has been really, really good. I'll definitely be submitting some music to Carrie. I just want her to know, expect it from me. Also,
right.
Chromatics, I'm a big, 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 big fan. So this is an honor.
Blessings, blessings.
Thanks to the heel. But the Simon, you know, good question, and I know we don't have much time, but I want to say that it is difficult. As a manager of a Caribbean act, you find that you always get put into the space, and I like people to understand that we're producing quality music, and we should be treated as such, not as the Caribbean thing. And we tend to get stuck in the Labor Day festivities. So you know, we've had some merch brands, some labels come to us and say, we want you guys to perform, and we get stuck doing the Caribbean segment at Labor Day. And I don't mind. I think that's awesome, but that's what we do. It would be nice for us. I mean, our music is getting heard and played across the world. Lyrical travels 365 days a year, except for this year, of course. But it's quality music that's coming out of Trinidad and Tobago, soca music, music from our island, and we would like to be recognized on those stages the same way as any other artist doing what you call world music, right? So that is a big concern. I let Matix, because I'm sure he has more than me. I'm the manager, and I get it, but as an artist, I'm sure he has more to add.
Good afternoon, everybody. To everybody locked onto the Zoom call. It's a pleasure to be here. Lots of great information, and of course, lots of great networking going on right now. Well, just a quick background. I'm a hip hop artist, entrepreneur, studio owner, radio announcer. Not only have I done hip hop for a number of years, but over the last few years, I've actually been blending hip hop and soca and calypso and rap. So trying to find a new sound for all of the above. Just a quick thing I wanted to say, Simon. I actually performed at the first ever Decibel event in 2002. So 18 years later, here we are, you know, with my group, Spot Rushers, back in the day. But going to your point, Simon, what I found is, and of course, it's just time helps you learn these things, is that when a lot of these industry professionals come down to Trinidad, and a lot of them come, yes, for Carnival, they're not coming with the mindset of work. They're not coming with the mindset of, I'm going to find new talent. I'm coming down here to party and fet and enjoy myself, right? So what I've found, so it's sometimes very difficult to sort of break that mental space where they're at, you know. But what I've found is that, you know, and I think Anson could also agree to this, is sometimes you just have to treat them as they would want to be in that space. Don't try and get too forward and try to push music on them and here's my CD and listen to this and do that. I find that, and I think it's also important when you meet with industry execs, etc., that they get a taste of who you are as a person. And sometimes that can help open a door before they even hear the music, you know. But that's been some of the problems I have encountered with you know, different people coming down.
Matix, I could just jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, like for example, and Simon, you know this, Simon has hosted many A&Rs, many execs. I mean, I think I become friends with 90% of the people that Decibel has brought, and like friends to the point where like every time I'm up in New York, I'll hit up, you know, various people, and I mean, I don't want to call names, but I'll hit them up. We go for lunch. They come to Trinidad. We party together, and I watch them grow into very important positions. You know, senior VP and execs, and the thing is, as you said, most times they come for fun. They're not really coming with the mindset to discover talent. But what I've realized that works for me is, you know, you just build a friendship and you just maintain that friendship. and then one day they're gonna call you because they're gonna need something. It's like I've actually become that guy who is like a plug for many.
And see, I want to jump in, and I didn't introduce myself. I'm sorry. I was there just jumping. I was so hyped on what Simon had to say. And I understand that. And I get what both of you are saying about them coming. But I don't know. I guess for me, when we lineman. You all know me. I'm very direct and very to the point. And I just feel like when I meet people, I'm coming with a product, right? I mean, if we're in Trinidad and I meet you at a fete, then okay, we at a fete. We lineman. That's it. But when I'm and just to be, I'm an artist manager for soca artists, but I reside in Brooklyn, New York. The artists that I manage is from Trinidad. I manage a few of them. They're from Trinidad, but they reside in New York as well, in the States. And so one of the issues we get called to do every Caribbean event there is. You name it. Once there's a Caribbean sling, we're trying to bring the Caribbean people out. There are even reggae events where they hire us to get the soca crowd. And what I'm saying is I would like to be called, not just, oh, well, we need this guy. I want put music in front of you and you say to me, listen, I like what you have. Here's what I feel could be better. Give me something so I can take that back to the camp and say, let's improve what we're doing. We can be friends. We can hang. I can buy you a drink. You can buy me one. But when it comes to the business, I want that guidance. If you're not paying attention to my music, why? And if you feel there's something I can do better, okay. Or tell me, you know what, you're doing exactly what you need to do this. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, let me say that. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Let me say, first of all, I am available. And born and raised in Brooklyn, I know exactly what you're going through. And I think that just continuing to network and do exactly what all three of you guys are doing, it's always about personality, vibe. And obviously we can tell the real from the fake in y'all particular industry, and I'm retired, thank God. But that's the trials and tribulation that you have to go through. I pay homage to Busta Rhymes giving me my start as a road manager for his cousin Rampage, and then a road manager for him. And doing so, I haven't had to go through too much because he's always had a name. So it's just about continuing to build and use these relationships and be involved in these kind of things and, make yourself available. There's some real people in this industry that will continue to help and will continue to help the culture grow. And, I'm one of them. I'm just on another side now, dealing directly with the audience so that when you have your music and you're ready to get it to a very specific audience, that's where my company comes in. Because I felt that in that industry, like you said, it's a little wishy-washy, but it's trials and tribulation. That's where you have to make your bones and just continue fighting, networking, and growing. That's the process.
I would like to ask a question real quick, kind of going off of what Natasha and Duquan have been saying, and I kind of want to apply it across the board to Mike, to Arturo. What do you think? Because we hear the sounds of popular music, how, especially within, I would say, the last 5 years, having a very much Caribbean feel.
Yes.
Whether it's Drake, Justin Bieber, who else, whatever. Yeah. What do you think is some of the things that we can do as Caribbean artists, being the originators of this song and this music, that can help push our music into the mainstream? You all, of course, ones who have also worked within that quote-unquote urban market, pop market, whatever.
Well, one of the things I've always said, just like Duquan said, an artist like Busta Rhymes coming from New York with strong Caribbean background as well, and who Busta was one that never shied away from that as well. One of the things I think, especially for the soca music, what I would suggest for a lot of these artists, become Grammy members. Like, why isn't the genre, recognized? Guys got to get out and vote and create a genre and say, hey, we're here. we're here. And like Duquan said, when people know when you go for a specific audience, it's one of the things that I see in the Latin music that has worked as well. You know, a lot of these guys, they come out, put music. But once they started voting, hey, we got to get this category in, because it was either salsa, merengue, bachata, and then you had reggaeton, and then Latin urban, which they've removed. So that's just my personal thing, that has to be more you know, we always speak about unity, and then for some reason it's just never happened. Like the love is there, but I think the strength in numbers, if Natasha had her groups, of Chromatic your group, Anson your group, and more groups, and they're seeing more, you know, keep throwing things up against the wall, something's gonna stick. That's one of the things that I would, you know, recommend. I'll pass the torch on to Carrie or Duquan there, or Mike.
Continue. I would say continue to. I would say continue to be involved. Listen to things that are taking place on this call. As a manager, continue to fight. Continue to evolve into the things that you want. Nobody's going to give you anything in this industry. So you really have to take the initiative and make those things happen, just as you have done. And let it be known when you're on those calls, hey, I'm coming because you called me about the Caribbean, but listen, this is what I want to do. Do you know how I can do this? Ask the questions, you know, grow, continue to grow. And I think that's my 2 cents, because like you said, now within the past 5 years, it's completely being recognized. If not, I don't want to say ripped off, but it's a collaboration. And I see a lot of artists paying homage now to the Caribbeans. So just continue to work.
Yeah, if I could echo what Arturo said, the very first Grammy I lost was with Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City. And Grammys were on a Sunday. And the next Monday, I had a session with the team camp, he's on the label. So I was talking to the mix engineer, and we were both pissed off because we just lost Grammys, our first nominations together.
Was that mixed by Ali?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir. And we were just talking about hip hop in general. And just a little bit more backstory. The last album that was a hip hop album that won a Grammy was Outkast. And that was mastered by my mentor and the studio owner. And the only other one before that was Lauryn Hill. So we were getting into a conversation about, of course, you feel like you should have won. And then the question I posed to him was, well, are you a Recording Academy member? And he's like, no. And I said, look, for people in hip hop, and I'll just use that as the example, but I'm sure it translates to the Caribbean. To your point, you have a team of people who are all engineers who are all credited enough to join the Recording Academy. We need more people at that time of color voting for rap albums, just like you would need more people in the Caribbean voting for Caribbean music. So I think, I mean, it's not some revelation, but like to get on the inside and change it from there, as much as you're trying to change it sonically outside, to have a voice at the table. It's kind of like voting in general. If you don't vote, I don't want to hear your complaints about anything, right?
But
Because,
I believe, Mice Martin, are you a voting member?
Yes, I am a voting member, and we actually have been working on an initiative to get both to try and increase membership here, as well as to get a category in the Grammys. All I'll say is watch this space. But we are working at it. Unfortunately, the last year the Grammy Awards actually made it a little bit harder to join, but despite that, we are working on it. But great point, great advice.
That's great. So I guess the higher ups have kind of like pulled out their cane and wrapping up my neck, but man,
I just want to add one more thing to that question. And my perspective comes from what is there outside of music directly, right? So be involved or be open to be involved with events and organized.
Is anyone hearing her cut off a little bit?
Outside of music, because what people will face, period.
Carrie,
so,
I think you cut off a little bit. Can you repeat that? Because you're
sure. It's being active and participating in things outside of music. Okay, so let us get to know who you are, because it's about consistency. How many times we see your name or hear someone reference your name? And in this specific question, it's in the States, right? Because this is where you have Billboard, this is where you have Grammys, this is where you have the Hot 100, whatnot. So like maybe it has to do with what you stand for as well. And getting involved with organizations outside of music, like maybe you do a partnership with Red Bull that's doing an event to raise awareness for a nonprofit initiative. Or maybe it's you saying, I'm going to volunteer basically my time and do this. It's not necessarily seeing your name in music, but seeing your name repeatedly, right? And then people start to question, who are you? And then they see, oh, the music. A lot of people have gotten awareness about their music because of other means. So if that makes sense.
That's
so true.
That's actually been one of my strategies with my artists, which is just do as many interviews, publications. Like she's been featured on a lot, like Nyla's been the first soca artist to be featured on many different platforms, you know. Abema TV, that's in Japan, Toronto's #1 and #2 morning shows, Now Magazine, Fader, you know, so it's a lot. We even doing this big hair show. It's like, I forgot the name of it. It's in New York, where it's like Black empowerment, where all these females come out and they just talk about their hair. It's crazy. It's like hundreds of thousands of people do this, you know. So I feel you on that. That's one of the strategies we've been doing.
And honestly, I can use like the example with Anderson .Paak, because before we had anything for him, we had him participate in every type of concert, festival, yes, we had to pay. People weren't paying for him to fly certain places, but if given the opportunity, that's a part of our budget to send him out there. So now you see him in a light where GQ identifies with him as for his style, right? But had he not volunteered, but sacrificed his time in our budget to send him to places where he'd be seen in a light outside of just being an artist, he wouldn't have been the awareness for him wouldn't have been there across the board for his style, for an artist, for the nonprofit work. And so I think it's a great opportunity that doesn't cost so much to do.
Yeah, no. Well, I think everyone got a bag full of gems today. To recap really quick, we got some great insight from Mike and Martin on the mastering and a lot of the engineers. We got insight from Anson on production, management, from Tasha, artist from Chromatics, and then Carrie, thank you so much. Best of luck with the project, with the Revolution project. Also, guys, Chromatics, Tasha, Anson, remember to send her, you know, this opportunity.
Yes, definitely.
This is the opportunity, guys, ask for. And now that it's right here in your lap, also, Duquan, thank you so much. The same thing. Everyone's always asking for a lot of the things, what else he's doing, aside from the music, because I think we got a lot from the music today, but we also got a lot of stuff on humanity, you know, what we have to do to be better people. And to echo what Carrie said, we have to come out of this whole situation better than when we came into it. So I think there was a lot of great talk, mental health awareness. One of the other things I would like to see when we could also get something else going on is kind of like the financial freedom and financial awareness for a lot of these artists as well, and stuff like that. So
yes,
if ever we could do that.
I would love to take part in that.
Yeah.
I would love to take part and educate different artists and managers as well about
Yes.
the financial missteps in this industry
There we go.
in particular.
There we go. Thank you guys for allowing me to partake in this.
Thank
Simon,
you, Arturo.
my bro. No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So bless
Thank
everyone.
you.
And Simon, I'll let you
I'll
wrap it
enjoy.
up. Yes.
I get the honor. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I want to say quickly, of course, thanks to everyone that we invited. Carrie for making this happen is, of course, I mean, I know Mike, I don't know if Mike is still there. You know, all our foreign participants. Duquan, you're an amazing dude. I want to say thanks for spending the time with us. The festival, we're in the middle of producing a show that's going to air on August the 1st throughout the Caribbean. It's called Hands That Help. And essentially, it's our way of giving back to those families who can't even afford to send their kids to school. But it's an arts and entertainment vehicle. So we are probably going to reach out to you guys again at some point and ask you guys, you know, to get involved and help us as our global citizens, so to speak. So that being said, much love to all my people here on the ground. You know who you are, and you know Arturo, of course, who hosted it, Anson, Natasha, Chromatics, Modern. I feel like it's a Grammy speech now, so I'm gonna. Like, you know, anyone I forgot, I apologize. I'm only seeing who's in front of me right now, but love to all of you, man.